Today, a story about something most of us use on a daily basis. Convenience is something we depend on and even expect. How'd this fancy gadget come to be anyway? I'm Coyne, and this is the story behind the story. Before I begin, I want to mention my sponsor, Hollyweird.shop.
Check out Hollyweird.shop, where the obscure cult classics and the bizarre collide. From wearable collectibles to one-of-a-kind apparel, they've got the perfect items for the true movie fan. Dare to be different and unleash your weird. Hollyweird.shop unveils new designs every week and is now offering great shipping deals. Stand out, creep out, and wear your weird. Shop now at Hollyweird.shop.
This was the kind of accident that changes the world. The year was 1945, the world was still at war, but an entirely different kind of battle was being fought in the laboratories of a defense contractor in Waltham, Massachusetts. Inside those labs, a team of scientists were working tirelessly, pushing the limits of technology. Their mission? Perfecting radar systems for the Allied forces. The company, Raytheon, had become one of the leaders in military technology, playing a crucial role in the war effort. One of those scientists was a man named Percy Spencer, a self-taught engineer with a mind as sharp as the very signals he studied. Now, Spencer wasn't just any scientist. He had no formal college degree, no prestigious training. He had taught himself electrical engineering while working at a paper mill, learning everything he could from textbooks he read after hours. By sheer grit and intelligence, he had worked his way up to become one of Raytheon's top minds. Incredible. But even the greatest minds get hungry. On this particular day, Spencer had spent hours working on a magnetron, a device used to generate the high-powered microwave signals that made radar work. Now, he had worked with magnetrons before dozens of times, hundreds, but today was different because today, Percy Spencer had a candy bar in his pocket, and that candy bar was about to change history. As Spencer worked adjusting the magnetron, making his calculations, he suddenly noticed something strange. His candy bar, once solid, once whole, had melted into a sticky mess. Odd. He wasn't standing near a heater. The lab wasn't particularly warm. There was no direct heat source. Yet somehow his chocolate had liquefied. Intrigued, Spencer did what any curious scientist would do. He experimented. Reaching into his desk drawer, he grabbed the first thing he could find, a handful of unpopped popcorn kernels. Interesting he'd have that in his desk, but he placed them near the magnetron and then pop, pop, pop. The kernels exploded into fluffy white popcorn right before his eyes. Now he was really interested. If the microwaves could heat popcorn, what else could they do? Spencer, now joined by a few curious colleagues, decided to escalate his experiment. Next up, an egg. Yeah, an egg. We know what happens here. They placed the egg under the same conditions near the magnetron and watched. Sure enough, the egg heated rapidly, a little too rapidly, because just as they leaned in closer to examine it, boom! The egg exploded in their faces, sending bits of yolk and shell flying across the lab. It was messy. It was unexpected. It was the birth of the microwave oven. Spencer had just discovered something that scientists had overlooked for years. Magnetrons weren't just useful for military radar systems. They could cook food. Now the discovery was one thing, but would it be useful? Would it be practical? Could it change the way people prepared meals? Spencer wasted no time refining the idea. The first microwave oven prototype was built shortly after it was, well, let's just say it wasn't something you'd want in your kitchen. It stood 6 feet tall, it weighed 750 pounds, it cost $5,000, which in today's money would be the equivalent of over 60 grand. And worst of all, it needed a dedicated cooling system to prevent it from overheating. Not exactly an appliance you could just plug in next to the toaster. Raytheon saw potential in the technology and released the first commercial microwave oven in 1947. They called it the radar range. At first, it was used mostly in restaurants, trains, and industrial kitchens, places where speed and efficiency mattered more than convenience. But home use? That was a different story. People were skeptical. Would the food taste the same? Was it safe? And more importantly, would this strange new cooking machine give people radiation poisoning? It would take another 2 decades before microwave ovens truly became household items. In 1967, the first countertop microwave was introduced. It was smaller, it was cheaper, and finally it was ready for the average American home. Once consumers caught on, there was no turning back. By the late 1970s, microwaves were selling faster than dishwashers, believe it or not. By the 1980s, more than 25% of American homes had one. By the 1990s, over 90% of households relied on microwaves for everyday cooking. Today, the microwave oven is one of the most common kitchen appliances in the world. A billion-dollar industry, it all started not with a grand invention, not with a carefully planned discovery, but with a melted candy bar in the pocket of a hungry scientist. And now you know the story behind the story.